Hi, I'm Jamie, and this is the best magicians you've never heard of. Today's guest has an award-winning comedy and magic show. It's been seen in theaters, comedy clubs, and festival stages across the world. He's been invited to the White House, performed at the Kennedy Center, even Canada's National Theatre. I want everybody to please welcome Peter Gross. Hey, Peter, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Jamie?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to get this show rolling again.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what magic means to you?
Okay. Well, I mean, magic has been my life. I just talked to an old friend who also does magic, and I am now into my third decade of doing magic for a living. I grew up doing high school theater and other kinds of things, and then I thought I was going to become a circus clown. At the time, there were all these people who were doing the sort of modern. It was sort of right when Cirque du Soleil started, and I thought I was going to do that. But I had already started doing magic because I had done magic in high school, doing birthday parties. I had a partner who was the person I just talked to, and we did shows together. And so I had this magic thing at my fingertips, and so I moved to Boston after college, and found that there was this really vibrant street performing scene. So I not immediately, but after a couple of years, to be honest, I took my stuff out to the street. And that's where I really got the bug, because up until that point, I'd only performed for children and for families. And it was, it's fun and it's great. And it was really good money. I mean, when I was a kid, I talk about this in my longer show, but I mean, when you can make, I think at the time I was making like $30 for an hour, and that was amazing. 30 years ago, that was a lot of money. It was as much money as a kid makes for a paper route for an entire week or maybe 2 weeks. So I was making it in an hour. And so, it was always good money. But when I went out to the street, then when I really realized that I could perform not just for kids, but for anybody, and for everybody, because that's what the street is. And you get good fast. You make a lot of mistakes, and you discover a lot about what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are and what you have to be better at. And I did streets for years and years. I was one of the regulars in Boston at Faneuil Hall, which is considered one of the better spots in the U.S. There's probably 4 or 5 places in the U.S. that really have a vibrant scene. Boston's certainly one of them. That has taken me everywhere. It's taken me to, I've done a lot of corporate stuff. I've done trade shows. I was doing cruise ships a lot right up until COVID. I haven't gone back out, although offers are starting to come in. And of course, the last 18 months, it's been virtual, and that has been its own adventure. And at first I was nervous about it. Jamie and I talked, you remember I talked when I first talked, I think it was a year ago, I was saying, oh, I'll never do it. I can't figure it out. It doesn't work. And soon after that, I realized I needed to do something. And I really took it on as a project. And so, I was able to make it happen. But what I love about magic is that it's really a combination of a lot of what I like, because it is ultimately about performance and storytelling and problem solving. I love to engage people. I love the look on people's faces when you realize that they've crossed over into fascination, from like skepticism into fascination. And so that's, a wonderful thing. And as a performer, I think I kind of balance comedy and magic pretty well in my own way. And I think what that does is it takes the sting out of people not knowing how things work, and just leaves them with a sense of wonder is not, I think joy. I wouldn't say wonder, because, there's certain performers who create these moments of like, of disbelief, the jaw opening, like, oh, I don't know how he did it. And I never go for that. What I really want is for people to walk out thinking I just had the best time.
You talked about street magic. Magic is one of the best ways to go out there and get feedback, because the audience is instant all the time, and it changes. It quickly changes. You get different audiences over the course of an evening of doing that. And there's times where I'll go out downtown. I'll do it for free just to go out there and stop random people and see the look on their face when it's over, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. And I, in terms of doing it for free, I mean, the doing it for money was important at some point, was important to me because one, I wanted to see if I could do it.
Right.
I think there was sort of a challenge in like, will people give me money for this? And I was surrounded by people who were doing that. They weren't all magicians, but jugglers and acrobats and other people. So I knew that that was a thing. And the other piece of it is you say, you know, it's just go out for the fun of it. One of the pieces of advice I give people who are struggling with magic on the street is don't think about the money. Don't think about how much you're going to make. Think about doing it for fun. And sometimes back in the day when I would be out there and I would be having a really hard time, because one of the things things I learned about myself as a street performer was I could not help but bring whatever my mood was. So if I was tired, I was going to be tired of my show. And so there were times when my show was just not working very well. And I would literally say to the audience, hey, you know what, folks? I'm not going to collect at the end of the show. This show is just for free. This is just for fun. I'm going to have some fun with it. If you want to stick around and see the fun, please do. But I'm not going to be passing the hat at the end. And sometimes when I said that to the audience and said it to myself, then as a performer, I kind of opened up a little bit and had more fun with it. And I wasn't stuck in like, oh, because sometimes, and you know this, when you're practicing a routine, like you go into performing it and you're like, your only thought is, okay, I really got to get that. I really got to hit that double lift perfectly this time, or I got to make sure that I do that, that move or this moment just right. And your attention goes all in the wrong place and you're not entertained. You're not looking out at the audience. You're not interacting with them. And so sometimes just giving up whatever it is you thought you were going to be working on and just playing a little bit more, a lot of my magic is slow. But no other way to say it. I mean, I'm not the guy who's like always setting, I'm not always like loading the chop cup while I'm pointing at the apple. I'm not that guy. I might do one thing and then just stop for a minute, go halfway through a card trick and do something else. I mean, literally, and not knowing what I'm doing, but like, I've forced the card ready and and I hope I can tell that I forced the card ready. And then I'm like, something happens and I'm like, all right, let's talk about that for a second. And then I come back. And sometimes that actually makes the magic even stronger because it's clear that you're not stuck on two rails, like a railroad track.
Let's talk about that a little bit here.
Yeah.
Trying to get yourself amped up, ready to go for a show, right? Trying to get in the right frame of mind, trying to be there. Well, in the last 18 months, we've taken a very crazy journey. Entertainers such as ourselves have been hit especially hard because there's no more gathering. There's no more shows. There's no more weddings. There's none of that stuff, right? And then magicians come together as a group to come up with virtual magic, right? And you see magicians through COVID all over the place doing these virtual shows, and they're fantastic. That's adapting to the situation. But standing in front of a camera in your living room to do magic with no audience in front of you, just the people on Zoom or YouTube or whatever, I find it difficult to really get into the character in that kind of situation. How did you deal with that? What happened in your situation?
That's Jamie, that is a great question. And the answer is I threw out everything I do on stage. Threw it out. I mean, I'm not saying I'm never going to do it again. I'll do it the minute I get back on stage. But I did not try to adapt anything that I do. I asked myself what would work, in this square. And the best examples were what happening right here, you and me talking. And I realized, wow, the times that it doesn't work is when I stop and try to do something, in my show, I don't have an overhead camera. I know a lot of people have them. I don't have one because I want to be performing the way I perform close-up magic, which is across the table from somebody. And if for a moment I need to show something on the table, I'll literally tilt the camera and then literally tilt it up. And there's another secondary reason I do that. But basically my goal is that I should be looking in their eyes as I do with close-up magic most of the time. So I thought, well, what can I do up here? What can I do here? And what can I do behind me? And what's in this frame? And when I stopped trying to, and the other piece of it was, I realized that I needed to use some of the technology, not the production stuff that people, and for example, for this program, you're using some TV production style stuff. But I realized that the value that I could bring to it was using what everybody knows and what everybody has on the computer. So I do opening section of my show is not magic, it is comedy. And it is a David Letterman style top 10 list. And I use PowerPoint. So at some point the screen goes to a PowerPoint slide and, these jokes come up and I do a top 10 list. And that's something, and I have a couple of other bits that I've written. But basically what happened was when I started getting corporate gigs, it changed because then I kind of know how to do one of the things I always do for corporate crowds is I do a little background of the company. So I was like, oh, I should do some jokes about their field. I should do some jokes about the people who are going to be in the audience. And so I wrote a couple of bits that were based on, it's very much like late night. You do the setup and you show the slide. The slide is the punchline. And so I wrote those. And then once I was doing that, I was like, okay, so when I come back, I should keep that kind of talk show format going. And that's what, so now I just do shows. I mean, literally, you're talking about getting ramped up for the show. The tone of voice I'm using right now, the body language, I'm probably a little more relaxed because I'm not, I'm not on, I'm on stage, but I'm not, you're not a paying client. I'm not doing a thing, but in general, this is the energy I try to bring to the shows because it makes me just one of them. It's sort of that Di Vernon thing of never do anything with a deck of cards. It doesn't seem like you're just a regular Joe with a deck of cards. So, he was, I think it was him, very against card flourishes because it made people clear that you were a unique human being rather than just a regular Joe who could do amazing things. So I want to be a regular Joe in my office. So everybody else who's in their office, or in their living room, whatever, they look behind. Oh, look, he's got a printer. Oh, he's got books on the shelf. He's got books on the shelf. Oh, that's where he takes a nap. So it's like it's a very normal. It feels very normal.
I had a friend of mine. His name's Eric Bedard.
Oh gosh, I know that name. Why do I know Eric Bedard's name?
The cool magic dude. Big purple suit.
I think I met him.
Yeah. Anyway, we're
pretty
good friends.
I'd have to go back and figure out where I was. Sometime I was in Canada. I think probably.
There was times back 20 years ago. He was at my house. We're screwing around on the floor with all kinds of different card tricks and ideas and whatever. But when the virtual thing came up, I did a show for Warner Brothers that kind of threw everything out of whack because all of a sudden people had expectations of me. Right. So it made me nervous. Right. Oh, because as a magician, you walk into somebody that nobody knows who you are. Right. And you're just a magician. You go out there, you perform, they're amazed. Right. But if they have a preconception of what to expect because they read a review from somewhere. Right. So that's what happened to me. But Eric gave me the best advice. This is such a great idea. Before doing a virtual show, everybody's piling into the Zoom room or on the YouTube and whatever. And so what he told me to do, turn off the mic, turn off your camera. Nobody can see you or hear you. And 5 to 10 minutes before your show, start your show. Just do it like everybody could see you and you could see them, but they can't see you. So by the time you turn on the camera and the mic, you're already into the whole thing.
And now, Jamie, I got to ask, what does that mean very specifically, what are you doing? It's a fascinating idea.
It can be anything. It doesn't matter specifically what you're doing, but you're performing to get yourself into that zone. Right. So for me, for example, it could be a trick that I'm going to repeat in the actual show. I could sit there and do Triumph or something like that, whatever. Just do something to get your hands moving, talking into that whole magician mindset, and then boom, 10 minutes later you hit your video and your audio, and you're already it's like swinging a bat in baseball with a weight on it, right? You're getting yourself prepped up and ready. So that was some of the best advice I ever got was that. That's great. Piece.
I mean, and I think that's true. I mean, and there's an equivalency in street performing, which is that the show begins when you start unpacking your props. You show, if you're not being entertaining, being interesting as you're opening up your suitcase and putting your stuff out, it's much harder to get a crowd. And this is something that was taught to me by Robert Nelson, the Butterfly Man, who who's one of the greats, which is that one of the great ways to get a crowd is to create some mystery, and the mystery comes when you're setting up your props, not when you're doing your show. So when when you're taking your props out and you're putting them down and you're and it's that. It's some of that bizarre magic thing. If you treat your props with a certain amount of respect when you're touching them, even before the show starts, people go, well, what is that? I got to see what that's going to be. So I used to do this whole elaborate setup of my props, and it was the way I got a crowd, and I love that. I love that, starting your show, like I said, doing a trick first for yourself. It's also got the great psychological effect of in hypnosis, we call that an anchor, a hypnotic anchor. By doing the triumph, your body and your mind are like, oh, right, I know how to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. So speaking of props, we're going to look at a routine from your virtual magic show. And there's some props involved here, but the way you put this together is brilliant. I love it.
Thank you.
So why don't you just give us a quick overview of what we're going to be seeing here?
Yeah, so this is right in the middle of the act, and it's what ended up happening was I wanted to get now, and now I'm going to contradict myself. I wanted there to be part of the show where there was a kind of continual reveal. One thing led directly into the other, and I realized that it made sense because there are I knew a couple of tricks with a dollar. And I love them all. They're all things. A couple of them are things that I do in my close-up set. So I knew I had material with a dollar, and I thought, well, what would be the point of doing one trick with a dollar and then stopping and then picking up the dollar again? So that, okay, once I pick the dollar up, it's going to be. And I actually, I made a compendium of that, just that section that you called the journey of the dollar. And so a couple of things happened to the dollar. And in the process, you get these wonderful kind of reverberations where it builds in a very nice way. And you're only going to see the first half of it because it's too long. It's like I said,
it's about 6 minutes.
Sentence. It's about 6 minutes, but then there's probably another 6 minutes. It's like I said, it's about 12 minutes of my 30-minute show because I keep going because I'm like, well, why not? And I'm a huge fan of getting ahead in any way possible, because because it's one of the ways that you can always thrill an audience is if you can by just being aware that whatever you do right now can have an effect later, and the audience has no idea where you're going. So let's take a look at it. We'll talk about it.
This is Peter Gross and his virtual show, just a small little piece, but let's take a look at it.
I'll tell you the story. The first time I really did magic in front of friends and got a real reaction. I was at school one day, and the bully of the school, Ethan Goldberg, came up to me and he said, "Hey, Gross, heard you're a magician. Do you want to see a trick?" I was trying to be friendly. So he said, "Yes, of course I want to see a trick." He said, "Well, give me some stuff. You got $1?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have a pencil?" I said, "Yes." Now, this is a trick I would normally borrow $1 for. So I'm actually going to get one more person involved. Sarah, would you mind unmuting for me?
Yes.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
So now, Sarah, normally for this illusion, I would borrow $1 from you. Obviously, that's very complicated. Zoom has not perfected that technology. So in lieu of me getting $1 from you, would you mind giving me, obviously your initials are SH. I'm going to write that down. But I'd like you to also give me the name of somebody who I would not know you'd name. So in this case, I'd like it to be your childhood crush, either a famous person or an unfamous person. First person you had a crush on when you were 13, 14, 12, 9, 8.
Okay.
Who would that be? For the first time, since this, I'll never know. Say, well, who is it?
Ryan.
And can you give me a last initial?
H.
Ryan H. Okay, I'm going to write that down. So we've got 4 initials. We've got SH and RH. Hey, that's that old joke about if you got married, you wouldn't have to change your luggage. All right. So there is Sarah's bill with the little heart around it, SHRH, just like she has in her journal. And I will do the magic trick now. I'm kidding, of course. I will do the trick now for everybody. So Ethan grabbed the $1 and he grabbed the pencil. He folded the $1 up and he put the pencil in a very specific way, which is he put the pencil right inside the folded bill at the center, right there. And then, without asking, he pushed the little pin of the pencil, the tip of the pencil, through the bill. He said, "Isn't that cool trick?" I said, "It's not really a trick. It's really more of a stunt. And you're destroying money, and it's my money, and I'm not that impressed." He goes, "Oh, I'll make it impressive." And he pushed the pencil through and actually showed me that it wasn't a trick, wasn't origami. He had actually put the pencil through Sarah's poor initials and the $1. And then to make matters worse, when I grabbed the pencil, I ripped the pencil right through the $1. Well, I was humiliated. It was my money. It was pizza day, for God's sakes. And I didn't know what to do. Well, I watched magicians on television, so I knew it was possible. So I took the pencil like a magic wand and I waved it over the dollar. And when I unfolded the dollar, the hole had completely healed. Pretty cool. I went home that day realizing that there must be more to this trick than even I realized. And so I practiced and experimented and found that I could create the illusion even more elegantly by folding the paper the other way, and therefore ending up with the pencil wrapped around the dollar, just like that. Now, if I do it slowly, you'll actually see it happen. 1, 2, 3. And the dollar is still intact. Pretty cool trick, right? Yeah. Oh, I see applause. I see applause, and I hear fumbling.
Yay.
Yay! There it is. Thank you. That's great. But let me explain. Sarah, I would love to give you this dollar, but I really haven't done what I promised, which was make a connection. So, Sarah, I'm going to ask you a question now.
Okay.
Sarah, if this was really your dollar, and I was planning on giving it back to you so you could put it back in your wallet, what would you want me to do to your dollar first? If I could really do magic, like, Harry Potter or Mike Tyson, one of those real magicians,
What would I want you to do with the dollar?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want those initials on it. I don't
Oh, of course not. But would you want me to make it a different?
I'm Canadian, so we don't have dollar bills.
Oh, let me explain. This is $1.50. This is $1.50 Canadian. And no, what I meant was, like, would you want me to transform it into something like bigger, for example?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, maybe some more. I mean, no, not really.
No?
Want the dollar back.
You are such a Canadian. If I ask an American if they want me to take a dollar and transform it, they will at least say make it 100. I mean, that would be the thing they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that would be awesome, right? I mean, if I could actually take money and fold it up and unfold it at my fingertips, it would be.
I want that.
Yeah, you want that. Okay. And you know what? And if I could give this to you now, I would, but I can't. And it's not just because of Zoom. It isn't. It isn't because I know it seems like it should be because of Zoom. It's actually, Sarah, it's because this is not my 100 to give. I'll tell you, this looks like just a $100 bill, but it has a meaning. I know, because I rarely have these on hand. I got this because I get a lot of takeout food from a Chinese restaurant, and it's always the same guy. Is always this guy, Leon. And I keep promising Leon, I keep paying by credit card, but someday I'm going to give you a tip. And I thought, this is time. Went to the bank, I got a $100 bill, and I put it in that envelope back there against the wall. I'm going to go get it now. 1 second. See, it's supposed to be in here in this envelope, which I kept up here so that you could definitely not lose track of it. And as I come close, Sarah, you'll see it's just a manila envelope. You got it like it's Staples. But if I point it towards you, Sarah, you'll see that there's actually something in it. Does that look like a bill to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. In fact, it was supposed to be 100, but the 100's here in my lap, which means that this must be the dollar. That's not the impressive part. The impressive part is, even though I know you're Canadian, you hate to see me destroy anything, it's the one with your initials on it.
Wow.
Yes, real magic. Real magic. Awesome. All right.
Okay, Peter, that was freaking fantastic. I love the idea behind this, and this is such a great way to use this. Tell us your thoughts about this routine. What's going on here? What can you share?
Yeah. So, okay. So, I mean, for anybody who knows, who's kind of, there's nothing in here that is new, except I think the way that I've strung things together. And I think that's one of my strong suits. The first part of it is the incredible Timothy Wank routine, Misled, which was one of the first tricks that Copperfield did when he started doing those close-up routines in the middle of his stage shows. And it was, when he did it, it shook the world of magic. And it was the first time I think that a close-up trick had been like, the price went from like $4 to like $20.
Yeah,
because he deserved it, because it's a great trick. And what's beautiful about it is, although it is possible to do it live, and I do it live, the angles aren't perfect on it, and it's not, there are other ways of accomplishing. It's a bunch of different ways of accomplishing it. And basically, it is a sold product, but basically it's a little thing you add to your pen, to your pencil, that does the work. But I'll say this: It is so well designed. I mean, Mr. Wank, who I've spoken to, Tim, I've spoken to a couple of times, and it is so well designed. It is so well created, and there's absolutely no reason not to buy it, because you will not be able to make it as well as he makes it, and the all the people who've tried to make it, the Chinese versions, which I've seen, are made of the wrong material, and it doesn't work as well, and it rips your bill, and it's a mess. So I actually talked to him yesterday, and I said, because it was for years it was available, and then it went out of stock, and now it's back. And I wrote to him and I said, do you want people to buy it through the stores, which I think it's a couple of the US magic shops. And he said, no, write to me. So for anybody who wants to learn this, he comes with the gimmick, and it comes with just extraordinarily well-written illustrations. And of course, you can watch David Copperfield do it. So if you ever want to see a great performance of it, you can see that. And I'm just grabbing my phone here. So
where
you can write to him.
Okay, sorry, I was going to say, where do you get this?
Oh yeah, I was going to say exactly. Well, you can write to Tim at Wenk Magic. That's WENK Magic at yahoo.com.
Put that on the screen.
Yep, you'll put it on the screen, and I'll say the phone number as well. It's 808-866-0331. He lives in, I believe he retired to Hawaii. Not a bad thing to do. So he's probably in a different time zone than East Coast, where I am and where you are. But he's a lovely guy, and I'd order it through him, so he gets all the money, and you'll love it. You'll love it. You will do it, and you will love learning it, because it's one of those, and these things. There's so much fun. There are certain tricks that are fun to do, because while you're doing them and you're looking in the mirror, you go, that looks really good. It really looks good.
I'm really curious how magicians are going to see the envelope part. I'm curious how many will be fooled by that, because I think it's fantastic. I use the exact method, but I think that is such a clever, sneaky way to do something.
I would love to say that I invented it. I have seen other things done this way. I think it's here's the thing, Jamie, and we both know this. Especially young magicians, they get really captivated by the newest thing. But there's that old book from like 1960, probably called like 50 Tricks with a Thumb Tip. I bet that a version of that, obviously not my version and not combined with the pencil and not, the whole thing, but of making something jump to an envelope is probably in there, but nobody notices it because nobody's selling that, as an amazing trick. I mean, that's the thing, is
everybody's looking for this new impossible visual, looks like real magic. I mean, that's what you see on the advertisements. It looks like real magic, right?
Right. But here's the thing, when the beauty of these things, and you'll notice that I've actually got two, there's actually three predictions in plain sight. So I've got the envelope that I use. That's a clip that I use for a mind reading trick. And that is a prediction that I use for a card trick. So, but they're all in screen. And when, I make sure that when I take them off the wall, as I think I did, you make sure you keep it into, but when you reach back and you get, go get that envelope, you can hear the audience go, begin to mumble. Oh no, It can't be. It won't be. It can't be. Now it's not visual, but the mind does the work. And when you show the inside and they can see that bill in there, trick's over. Like nobody's looking. You could. I mean, it's that old gag about you could use a silver thumb tip and no one notice. Their mind has so much written the story of what's going to happen.
So this has been fantastic. I love talking these. We could talk all day about different crazy methods and ideas and sneaky things and whatever. But I wanted to ask you. We've gone through COVID. We're starting to do shows again. Things are happening. Hopefully they keep happening. So what's in the future for Peter Gross? Is it, are you going to continue doing some virtual stuff, or is it going to be just straight back to doing live, or, what's going on with you? What's your idea?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, as Peter O'Toole said in an interview after he did a couple of crappy movies in a row, you understand I do this for a living. So, if virtual shows will continue, I will do them. I think they're going to continue. I think because there are more and more companies who are operating virtually. I'm going to do a show towards the end of December for a company that is in Dallas, but every one of their employees is someplace else. Mm-hmm. So the idea that, that they cannot do a live show because they would have to fly, whatever it is, 50 people into one spot, and they've got no other reason to be there except, to have a party. So that's not going to happen. So virtual shows, I think, will continue. Live shows will come back, definitely. I think maybe even, the third option, which I'm not a huge fan of, although I'll figure out how to solve it also, which is, the combination show where they have a live show and they have a live audience and they also have cameras set up and they're broadcasting the show. That would work, I think, if they're willing to have a real production company. When I've done larger corporate gigs, and they don't happen all that often, but when I do, there's time I've gone in and there's been 3 cameras and a director and they run it like a live show. If they want to do that, great. I have a bunch of projects I'm constantly working on, and right now I'm really happy doing the mentalism, and I'm a trained hypnotist, so I also hypnosis show, and I'm doing clinical hypnosis as well. By the way, you asked at the beginning if there's anything you want to tell. If anybody wants coaching for using hypnosis as a coach, I work specifically with business people who want to supercharge their output and make themselves productive and confident in conversations and negotiation. So I've worked with people I've worked mostly in real estate in Boston area, but also in other kinds of entrepreneurship. And I find it a hugely helpful thing for myself. I use hypnosis in my own work as well to get myself energized and charged. And so that's really future. And
how does somebody get a hold of you?
Great question. Yeah. So I have a billion websites because that's the way it operates. So for my magic, funnymagic.com. It's an easy one. I got it early. For hypnosis, it's Mind Mastery Hypnotist with a T at the end.com. Mind Mastery Hypnotist. But if you just put Peter Gross Hypnotist into Google, the beauty of Google is they come right up. So you can find me there. There's actually also some online. I've got a YouTube channel of self-hypnosis recordings that you can use. If there are students out there, I have a free downloadable program for study as a study aid that I did as a giveaway for the shows I was doing at colleges and high schools.
Fantastic. I'll put some cards up here and some links so that people can get to that. Peter, I've talked to you more than once, and I love talking to you. You're full of energy. And you're very knowledgeable. I like the way you think. You have some great ideas, and I love the routine you did here. It was fantastic. I had so much fun watching it. So I want to thank you for being on the show. And is there anything you'd like to share before we go?
No, that's it. But I want to thank you for picking up where you left off. You took a break, and I think the community will be thrilled that you're back. Honestly, you do a great service.
I'm blessed that I made it through the last while. I've had some really bad health issues, but I'm starting to be healthy, and I hope I can keep doing. I love doing this, so I hope I can keep doing this, and I hope there'll be 20 more episodes for this season. I hope so.
Woohoo!
Right on.
All right.
Thanks, Peter.
Well, thanks so much.